So, Alan, we're continuing our series on looking at what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13 as he's describing love. And he starts off talking about what love is. He says that love is patient and love is kind. And then he moves quickly to what love does not do. So he moves from what love is to then in action, what does love avoid doing? Why is envy at the top of that list? I think that's one of those things that you read it and you're like, I don't know why this is here, but there's always a reason for that.
Yeah, Paul surprises us just as he surprised us with the first thing that he said love is, which is patience. That's not the first thing we would come up with. And it's the same thing when he starts talking about what love is not, and he says love is not envious, or it does not envy. That surprises us as well. When you think about the fact that all through the ancient church, envy was listed as one of the 7 deadly sins, and it comes right next to pride. And the very next thing that Paul is going to say in so many words is that love is not proud. But it's interesting that he says envy first and pride second, whereas we would reverse them. We would say pride first and envy second. If you look at the early church fathers, they all identified pride as being the root sin, or one of the root sins that made the devil the devil. You know, it talks about he wants to exalt his throne above the throne of God. That's certainly pride. A subset of the early church fathers added envy as well as pride, and they specifically identified the fact that it was the devil's envy of man, because whereas God initially created man a little lower than the angels, which is what Lucifer would have been, God's intent was to exalt in the end man above the angels. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians that we will judge angels. We don't know everything that means, but it at least means that as a bare fact. We start out lower than the angels, we end up above the angels, and that produced envy within Lucifer. And then that led to the pride. He hates man because of the envy there, and he hates God who made man and who made him for the purpose of being exalted above. And so now he hates God, and now here comes the pride with regard to God, where Satan wants to exalt himself above God. Satan wants to destroy God's whole project. He wants to destroy man himself. He wants him in bondage. He wants man suffering and degraded. And so envy and pride really are at the root. But it's very interesting that envy is listed first by Paul.
Yeah. What would you say is unique about envy? If you think about the things that love doesn't do, why is that's helpful in terms of why it's number one? And as you were saying that, I was thinking, love is concerned with giving, envy is concerned with getting, right? So love is concerned with giving yourself for others. Envy is concerned with what others have to get for you. But what's unique about envy in terms of the way that it functions in us?
The first thing we have to realize is that envy, our word envy, translates the Greek word zelos, from which we get zeal, which points out that it can, within us, it literally means to be heated up. And so it becomes a question of what fuel is our heart burning to heat up. Jesus in Revelation 3, when he writes to the church at Laodicea, that's the famous lukewarm church. He says, you're neither hot nor cold. And he wants them to heat up their hearts by focusing on Christ and then burning the fuel of love for him within their heart. He wants their hearts to be heated up in that way. So they would be burning the fuel of love for Christ. That's good fuel. That produces good heat. But In a fallen world, as fallen creatures, most of the fuels that we burn in our heart to heat them up are bad fuel, and it produces bad heat. In other words, a good fuel like love for Christ, love for others, that warms up. Burning the fuel of envy in our heart, that cooks us. It cooks us, and it ends up harming and destroying other people as well. It's interesting, the church fathers who talked about the 7 deadly sins, they also noted, and subsequent writers have as well, C.S. Lewis, Chesterton, and so forth, have noted that out of the deadly sins, envy is the one that does not give any pleasure at all. Like lust, gluttony, those kind of things can deliver a temporary pleasure. And, they're going to be bad on the back end. Yeah. Whereas envy delivers no pleasure whatsoever. It is nothing but misery and destruction all the way through.
Yeah. What's the opposite of envy?
Love.
Love. How come?
Well, love, as Paul was going to point out, love is not puffed up, which means you're full of air, which means you have a big profile but no substance. Love builds up. So the focus of love is not how big is your profile. The focus of love is how much are you building up your fellow Christian and the body of Christ. So that's the focus. And so love is giving substance. Envy it creates a black hole to where you're sucking in. So it can make it seem like you're gaining lots of substance. In other words, you could argue that a black hole is the ultimate substance because it pulls everything in. But everything goes in, nothing comes out. Whereas God, by his definition, would say a black hole is nothing because it's not adding substance to anything except to itself. And so envy is the start of that whole process.
Yeah, the goal of getting so that your profile is getting bigger and bigger. So you can tell, that's helpful because you can tell how envy and pride go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
They feed each other.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.